been a little over a month since Eddie Van Halen's untimely death. And you know, to millions of fans, he will always be a rock legend, but nothing was more important to Eddie than being a dad. His son Wolfgang meant everything to him.
The remarkable transformation that Wolfgang Van Halen, son of the legendary Eddie Van Halen, has undergone has caught the attention of people all over the world. With a journey that has been nothing short of remarkable, Wolfgang has gone from being a young boy growing up in the shadow of one of rock's greatest icons to becoming an artist in his own right who has been nominated for a Grammy. However, what truly distinguishes his story from others is not simply the undeniable talent he possesses. Rather, it is the challenges he has encountered and triumphed over in order to establish himself as a formidable competitor in the music industry. For a number of years, Wolfgang was considered to be nothing more than Eddie Van Halen's son, and his opponents were quick to dismiss his accomplishments as nothing more than nepotism. On the other hand, what many people were unaware of was the enormous amount of pressure he felt to prove himself, not only to the rest of the world, but also to himself. The story of how he went from being a backing bassist for Van Halen to becoming the mastermind behind Mammoth WVH is one of perseverance, heartbreak, and unrivaled dedication. This trip was not at all simple to complete. Wolfgang had to contend with unrelenting criticism, the tragic death of his father, and the challenging task of emerging from a massive shadow. However, each obstacle served to boost his determination even further. Today, his music speaks volumes, putting to rest those who had doubts and earning him a place among the most promising talents in the rock music industry. How was he able to accomplish that? Can you tell me what motivates Wolfgang Van Halen to continue to push the limits? Be sure to stay tuned as we delve deeply into his life, his struggles, and the remarkable transformation that has left all of us in awe. The music industry was always Wolfgang Van Halen's calling. Since his birth on March 16, 1991, Wolfgang Van Halen has been surrounded by rock legends and the sound of electrifying guitar riffs. His parents, Eddie Van Halen and Valerie Bertinelli, were his greatest influences. It became immediately apparent that he had inherited his father's enthusiasm for music from a very young age. On the other hand, many people are unaware of the fact that Wolfgang's first love was not the guitar, but rather the drums. When he was a young child, he would sit behind his uncle, Alex Van Halen's enormous drum kit, and play with a bright and enthusiastic expression on his face. It was his father, Eddie, who recognized his natural rhythm and encouraged him to explore music on his own terms during his childhood. During the time that Wolfgang was a preteen, his musical curiosity expanded to include bass and guitar. However, the drums were the instrument that served as the foundation for his early exploration. When Wolfgang was a child, he did not fully comprehend the magnitude of the fame that his family enjoyed. In his mind, Eddie was not the legendary guitarist who revolutionized rock. Rather, he was simply Dad. However, this perception shifted when a friend brought to his attention the fact that Eddie Van Halen's face was featured on the cover of a magazine. "Is that Eddie Van Halen, your father?" "Wait right there." In awe, the friend inquired about it. It was a moment of epiphany for Wolfgang, who started to gain an understanding of the significance of the legacy that his family had left behind. Wolfgang's childhood was surprisingly grounded, despite the fact that his family was famous in the entertainment industry. In order to ensure that he had a relatively normal upbringing, his parents made sure that he was able to balance his growing passion for music with his academic pursuits. The talent that Wolfgang possessed was undeniable, even when he was a child. One of the skills that would later come to define his career was his ability to pick up any instrument and know how to play it without any prior training. Wolfgang had already begun to develop his own sound by the time he reached his teenage years. He did this by combining the influences of his father's iconic rock style with his own distinctive musical instincts. There was no way he could have known that these formative years would eventually lay the groundwork for a career that would eventually leave the entire world in a state of awe. If you were a teenager, joining a legendary rock band would be an unattainable goal for the majority of you. For Wolfgang Van Halen, however, it was only when he was 15 years old that it became a reality. He was invited to join Van Halen as their bassist in 2006, taking over for Michael Anthony, who had been a member of the band for a long time. Diverse responses were received in response to the decision. The fans of the legendary band were skeptical. and they accused Eddie Van Halen of favoritism towards Wolfgang. They also questioned Wolfgang's ability to fill such a significant role. Unfazed, on the other hand, was Wolfgang. He was well aware of the scrutiny that would be placed on him in his new role, but he was determined to demonstrate his value. The guidance and instruction that Wolfgang received from his father allowed him to hone his abilities and devote countless hours to perfecting his craft. He wasn't content with simply keeping up with the times. He wanted to take the band's sound to the next level. The natural chemistry that he shared with the other members of the band, as well as his technical expertise, became immediately apparent during rehearsals and live performances. Despite the enormous amount of pressure, Wolfgang was eager to take on the challenge. David Lee Roth made his return to the band as lead vocalist during the reunion tour that took place in 2007 and 2008. This tour was his first major outing with the band. Every single night, Wolfgang, along with his father, his uncle Alex Van Halen, and Roth, stood on stage and delivered performances that were nothing short of electrifying. His youthful energy gave the band a new lease on life, and by the time the tour was over, both the critics and the fans had begun to recognize his talent. In spite of the initial criticism, Wolfgang never attempted to imitate anyone else or replace Michael Anthony in any way with another person. He brought his own unique style to the band, combining precision with a dynamic presence on stage. In addition to being Eddie Van Halen's son, he was also a talented musician in his own right, as evidenced by the fact that his bass solos became a highlight of the shows throughout his career. Nevertheless, the burden of the Van Halen legacy was always present in the atmosphere. Every note that Wolfgang played was going to be scrutinized, and every performance would be compared to the band's glory days. Wolfgang was aware of this. However, rather than giving in to the pressure, he exploited it as a source of motivation. Not only did his time spent with Van Halen mold him into a musician, but it also helped him get ready for the journey that lay ahead of him. This journey would eventually lead him to emerge from his father's shadow and establish a name for himself. A rock legend passed away all over the world in October of 2020. Despite the fact that the passing of Eddie Van Halen sent shockwaves through the music industry, Wolfgang experienced a loss that was profoundly personal and absolutely heartbreaking. Eddie was not only his father, but he was also his closest friend, his chief guide, and his most ardent supporter. Their connection extended far beyond the realm of music, and the absence of him left a hole that could not be filled by anything else. Throughout the years that Eddie had been battling cancer, Wolfgang had been by his side, providing unwavering support. Eddie had been battling the disease for years. However, Wolfgang saw the man behind the guitar as a loving father who, even in his darkest moments, prioritized his family. While the public saw Eddie as an unstoppable rock god, Wolfgang saw the man behind the guitar. Wolfgang stated in interviews that he had later said, "He was my hero. It was not only about music that he taught me everything I know, but also about life in general." When Eddie passed away, Wolfgang felt an immense amount of pressure to continue his father's legacy, which made the pain of Eddie's passing even more intense. There was a never-ending stream of speculation among fans and critics regarding the future of Van Halen, with many anticipating that Wolfgang would take over and carry the torch. Wolfgang, however, had other ways in mind. He was aware that there was no one who could take Eddie's place, and that any attempt to do so would only serve to diminish the significant contributions that his father had made to rock music. Rather than lamenting his loss, Wolfgang chose to channel it into his own creative endeavors. The result was Distance, an emotional tribute to his father that served as the lead single for his solo project, Mammoth WVH. The lyrics of the song, which were written as a heartfelt letter to Eddie, struck a chord with fans on a profound level and quickly climbed the charts. From Wolfgang's perspective, it was a way to pay tribute to his father while simultaneously establishing his own identity in the world of music. In spite of the fact that the death of Eddie Van Halen was a defining moment in Wolfgang's life, it additionally served as a wellspring of resilience. He discovered that through his music, he was able to work through his grief and keep the memory of his father alive within him. And by doing so, he demonstrated that even though Eddie's physical presence may no longer be present, his legacy will continue to live on, not only in the annals of rock history, but also in Wolfgang's heart and music. After spending many years alongside his father in the band Van Halen, Wolfgang Van Halen realized that it was time for him to forge his own path in the music industry. In the year 2021, he took a bold step by launching his solo career with the release of Mammoth WVH. This project was not merely another rock band, rather it was an endeavor that was deeply personal to him. Wolfgang was able to demonstrate his immense talent by playing every instrument, writing every lyric, and putting his whole heart into the music. This made the album a showcase of his talent. Mammoth was a name that carried a significant meaning. This was a tribute to the early days of Van Halen, when the band was known as Mammoth for a short period of time before they became famous. Wolfgang's decision to take on the name was a way for him to honor his father's legacy while also marking the beginning of a new chapter. It was the lead single from the debut album, titled Distance, that resonated with listeners all over the world. This song was written as a tribute to Eddie Van Halen, and it reflected the raw emotions that Wolfgang was experiencing after the death of his father. Fans were moved to tears by the accompanying music video, which featured home footage of Wolfgang and Eddie. The song's lyrics, which resonated deeply with listeners, and its powerful melody garnered praise from music critics. This single quickly rose to the top of the charts and even earned Wolfgang a nomination for a Grammy, thereby establishing his position as a prominent figure in the world of music. In the remaining tracks of the album, Wolfgang displayed his versatility by combining hard rock anthems with introspective ballads at various points. His ability to create catchy riffs and lyrics that are compelling was demonstrated by songs such as Don't Back Down and You're to Blame. In addition to his technical expertise, critics were impressed by his ability to create a cohesive sound that was distinct from Van Halen's legacy. This was one of the reasons why he was so well received. It wasn't just about demonstrating his talent when Wolfgang made his debut as a solo artist. It was also about establishing his own identity. Mammoth WVH was a declaration of independence for him, despite the fact that for many years he had been referred to as Eddie's son, or the Van Halen bassist. He was not attempting to imitate the achievements of his father. Rather, he was developing something that was completely unique to him. Wolfgang was once accused of riding on his father's coattails, but the success of Mammoth WVH put an end to those who had doubts about his abilities. On the contrary, it revealed a multifaceted artist who possessed a unique voice and vision. It was just the beginning of a brand new and exciting journey for Wolfgang, who was just starting out. Immediately following the success of Mammoth WVH, Wolfgang Van Halen did not waste any time in continuing his momentum moving forward. The year 2023 saw the release of his second album, Mammoth 2, which was eagerly anticipated by fans. This album once again demonstrated his enormous talent and his development as an artist. The album explored new sonic territories, blending hard rock with melodic experimentation, and it was built on the foundation of his debut album. In order to demonstrate that he was more than capable of maintaining his creative vision on his own, Wolfgang remained true to his solo approach, playing every instrument and handling all of the vocals. Several songs, including Another Celebration at the End of the World and I'm All Right, have garnered a great deal of praise from music critics, who have praised his ability to compose songs that are both catchy and complex. Wolfgang's reputation as a formidable force in contemporary rock was further cemented by the album's successful debut, which received positive reviews. Nevertheless, the album was not the only thing that garnered attention. With his versatility as a musician, Wolfgang was able to attract the attention of filmmakers, which ultimately led to his contribution to the soundtrack of the Barbie movie. Wolfgang brought his one-of-a-kind style to the film's score, which further expanded his reach beyond the realm of traditional rock music. He collaborated with rock legends such as Slash and Josh Freese of Foo Fighters. The performance that he gave at the Academy Awards was one of the most memorable moments of this period in his musical career. Wolfgang delivered a performance that captivated audiences and reminded the world of his incredible range. He shared the stage with some of the people who are considered to be the most prominent names in the music industry. He was able to adapt to new musical environments and thrive in them, which was yet another demonstration of his adaptability. Wolfgang Van Halen revealed that he was more than just a one-hit wonder with the release of Mammoth 2. Maintaining a healthy balance between his reverence for his father's legacy and his determination to carve out his own niche in the industry, he continued to push the boundaries of what was possible. Wolfgang's outlook on the future was more optimistic than it had ever been, and he was prepared to face whatever lay ahead. At the same time that Wolfgang Van Halen's professional life was climbing to new heights, his personal life was also flourishing. Wolfgang and Andrea Alsop, who had been his longtime love, tied the knot in a stunning ceremony in October 2023. The ceremony was a tribute to the legacy that his family had left behind. The couple exchanged their vows in a smaller, more intimate setting that was the ideal combination of romance and nostalgia. They were surrounded by their closest friends and family members. The inclusion of the song 316, which Eddie Van Halen had composed for Wolfgang when he was born, was one of the most heartwarming moments that occurred during the wedding proceedings. Everyone in attendance shed tears as they listened to the heartfelt tribute, which served as a poignant reminder of Eddie's everlasting presence in Wolfgang's life. After some time had passed, Wolfgang revealed that playing the song at his wedding was his way of paying tribute to his father and ensuring that his memory would be preserved during such a momentous occasion. Andrea was more than just Wolfgang's partner, she was his rock. She had been a consistent supporter throughout the entirety of Wolfgang's journey until the very end. She was by his side throughout the entire process, from the release of Mammoth WVH to navigating the public spotlight, and she maintained an unwavering level of encouragement. Their relationship, which had been going on for a very long time before Wolfgang's solo career became successful, was a demonstration of how strong their connection was. In addition, Wolfgang's mother, Valerie Bertinelli, expressed her happiness over the union by frequently posting heartfelt messages on social media about her son's development and happiness. The moment that Valerie witnessed Wolfgang finding love and establishing a life with Andrea was a moment of pride for her because it reflected the love and values that their family so deeply valued. The perseverance and commitment that Wolfgang demonstrated in his professional life were reflected in many aspects of his personal life as well. Andrea continued to be a source of support and strength throughout each and every obstacle, which made the journey that they were taking together all the more significant. The journey that Wolfgang Van Halen has chosen to take has been anything but typical. Beginning at a young age, he was confronted with the dual pressures of living up to the Van Halen name while simultaneously establishing his own identity. He was referred to as a Nepo baby by both critics and fans for a considerable amount of time, which implied that his success was solely due to the fame of his father. On the other hand, Wolfgang's unwavering commitment, talent, and unrelenting drive have demonstrated otherwise. Throughout his career, Wolfgang has been very open and honest about the difficulties he faced as a child growing up in the shadow of a rock legend. "I've always known that some people would never take me seriously because of my last name," he once said. "It's just something I've always known." He did not allow the burden of his family's legacy to hold him back. Rather, he used it as motivation to push boundaries and exceed expectations. "But that just made me work harder," he said. It was a baptism by fire for him to make his debut with Van Halen, but it was the foundation that laid the groundwork for his future success. He joined the band when he was only 15 years old, and despite the intense scrutiny he faced, he met every challenge head-on. When the time came for Wolfgang to strike out on his own, he did not simply follow in his father's footsteps. Rather, he forged an entirely new path for himself. Through the introduction of Mammoth WVH, Wolfgang was able to finally put an end to the criticism. Raw and genuine, his music was able to speak for itself, which resulted in him being nominated for Grammys and receiving widespread acclaim. Wolfgang has always placed a high priority on remaining authentic to who he is, regardless of the accolades he has received. Quite frequently, he has stated that his objective is not to step into his father's shoes, but rather to honor his legacy, while simultaneously creating something that is uniquely his own. As he looks to the future, Wolfgang continues to be intent on developing himself, both as an artist and as a person. As a result of his unwavering determination and unwavering passion, he has demonstrated that it is possible to surpass expectations and establish a legacy that is independent of others. The transformation that Wolfgang Van Halen has undergone is nothing short of motivational. His journey is a testament to tenacity, talent, and the courage to forge a unique identity. He began his musical journey as a young boy learning music under the guidance of his legendary father, and he is now an artist who has been nominated for a Grammy and is trailblazing his own path. In spite of the tremendous amount of pressure and the personal loss he experienced, Wolfgang not only persisted, but also flourished, demonstrating that he is much more than the name of his family. It is not the place where you begin that determines your level of success. Rather, it is the destination that you are willing to travel to. Awe has been expressed by both fans and critics regarding Wolfgang's capacity to channel his grief, to defy his critics, and to push the boundaries of his creative abilities. Through his work with Mammoth WVH, he has demonstrated to the world that he is not merely carrying on a legacy. Rather, he is constructing his very own. Regarding the incredible journey that Wolfgang Van Halen has taken, what are your thoughts? In the same way that we were you as surprised by his transformation? Post your thoughts in the comments section below. Please make sure to click the like button, subscribe to our channel, and enable notifications if you found this story to be inspiring. This will ensure that you are able to watch additional incredible stories like this one in the future. We have everything under the sun, from rock legends to up-and-coming stars. We'll see you in the next video, so make sure you stay tuned.